everybody. Hi, my sweet lifers. It's Alisa Murray here, hanging out again in the Sweet Life Garden. And it's been a minute since we did the video for the garden tour, and we've had a lot going on. We've had weather that was the 1913 heat. We've had to gut the garden, which you're going to see in a little bit. I actually did a video when we were getting ready to gut the garden back in the end of July, and it was just absolutely a disaster. Like, it's the first year that I've ever had a garden that I've had to like just take out completely because we had bugs, we had aphids, we had worms, we had dying plants everywhere. It was just not possible to continue to keep everything watered in. So now we're in the middle of August, and I'm going to combine that conversation that I had and take for you guys where we were with the garden when it was all getting messed up, and we're going to go through the garden and I'll show you what we've actually planted now for the pre-fall season in the garden area. The herbs over here that were over here in the apothecary, a lot of those guys have died as well, but I did plant a whole new fresh bed of lavender, which you're getting ready to see in a little bit. And all the herbs that are over there have done quite well. The only thing we lost was a big pot of sage. But other than that big pot of sage, and luckily I'd actually planted some more in a different bed out there in the main garden, so we actually have that for cooking as well. Listen, today I thought I'd give you the garden tour as I promised I would each month, but I tell you what, June was a doozy. Mama died end of May, and it was at that point in the garden where I needed to be in Houston, and then we didn't get any rain, and we haven't had any rain, and so now the garden is just an absolute disaster. We've got aphids in the tomatoes, we've got deer eating the cucumbers before they can even form on the vine, we've got lettuces that are all crunchy, we've just got stuff messed up everywhere. So normally I'm all excited and showing you stuff in the garden about, oh, look at what we got and look at what we made and look at what's growing. And this time I want to show you, here it is, middle of July 2022, and here I am ripping out the garden, and I've decided to do something pretty drastic. I'm going to just start over. I'm going to go in there in the kitchen after I get done prepping these beds and decide what will work and what won't work, what I'm willing to come out here in this 110-degree day heat and work on, what's worth growing so that we can have it just in the backyard, and what I'm just going to let go and not try to mess with until it gets a little bit cooler, because we're really living, it feels like 30 degrees from the sunshine in Houston this year. It's so hot, no rain, and it's just awful, and so it's just not worth it. And so I'm going to show you what I've done, talk a little bit about each of the beds. You know, you guys have been following me on the Instagram, you've been watching me do a little bit here and there. I'll show you where that artichoke is right now. It's pretty sad. But anyway, look at these flowers. Our zinnias even have pretty much tried to give up on, they're putting their seeds out and they're just dried up. And so I'll show you. Anyway, come on, let's see what we got going on. So this bed right here, and this bed right here, and this bed right here, we've already prepped. I went ahead and tilled them up and got them ready to go. We got brand new dirt and brand new compost in there. I did a little half leaf mold and half compost from Sienna Mulch. You guys know, big shout out to those guys as well. They delivered a couple of weeks ago, so I'd have what I needed to be able to prep the beds. But these guys get the shade during the day, so these guys are probably going to be the ones. There's Sasha, probably getting ready to use it as a litter box. To be honest with you, that's exactly what she's getting ready to do. Anyway, over here, you'll remember I did this beautiful pad and had gorgeous flowers on it. The flowers can't make it in the heat. This concrete absorbs the heat and then it casts it back up on the flowers, and they were just crunchy. So I moved all of those over to the side of the pool, and hopefully I can get something to grow in here. We're not going to be doing any pictures out here in the hot sun until probably the middle of August, maybe even September. So we should be good there. This is the pepper bed, and I want you to look at what's happened. Do you see this? You see every single bloom has been eaten. It's just where the deer have come up. You know, blessed be the deer, and here's the deal. They need to be fed. So part of the garden is also taking care of the wildlife, and you know, I'm all about that. So I've got a special surprise for you guys with regards to the wildlife here in a little bit. But this is just going to be ripped up. There's a pineapple, it looks like Mia stuck out there in the dirt. Maybe she's thinking we're going to grow some pineapples. I don't know. We'll see. We had a few growing, but they got taken by the heat. So we'll see. You know, you just keep trying. That's the thing about the garden. You just plant and you pray and you water and you tend and you hope it works. But when it's 110 degrees outside, ain't much gonna grow anyway. So anyway, this is what's left of the lettuce bed. And at this point, because I didn't get to it and I didn't get down in there and actually harvest it to eat it, all this stuff's going to be too bitter to eat. So I've left this bed open for the last couple of days thinking the deer might actually take it. And they haven't taken it and the bunnies haven't taken it. So I'll probably just pull this guy up and compost it. This will also be a full bed of lettuces because this is a really good spot for lettuces. This is a half of the morning sunshine. Middle of the afternoon it gets a little bit more, but it's not too hot to scorch the leaves. So this has really been a good spot for growing lettuces. This bed over here is a little wild, as you're going to see as you go through the garden. I'm going to show you. Didn't want to mess up these flowers because they just grew wild, and the butterflies have been all over the place. And so butterflies and bees are important. They're more important to me than when the food goes to you know what. Might as well let them have something. So this bed I may leave for another week or two because they've still got a little bit of action happening over here on these flowers. But as you can see over there, not a whole lot going on. And obviously way down in here, I had some jalapeno plants and they're buried deep. There's a couple down there, you can see them. There's a couple there. There's maybe, oh, there's one right there. You can see it right there. But again, not really good. Not really anything that you're going to want to eat. And I hung the Irish Spring soap. It helped a little bit, but not much. This bed had cabbages and it had celery, my gorgeous celery. Oh my God, the celery was so beautiful. I grown it from seed. Completely gone, completely gone. We're going to fill this bed in. We're going to till it up this afternoon, work on getting some more compost and really enrich the soil with some microlife nutrients and get it ready to go. And I'm going to put some seed. I'm going to direct sow into this one, probably some chard. What I'm going to try to do, I think, is I'm going to hit and miss each bed and figure out what I can manage with the water and try to get the watering with that because it's just too much. As you can see, go ahead and pan the whole garden. To try to water all of this in 110 degrees is it's just too much. It's just way too much. So it just is what it is. But anyway, next bed over here, we had a bunch of peppers in here as well. We had some cucumbers, and the cucumbers were doing pretty good. And then as soon as something starts to form on the vine, the deer eat it off because they're looking for water. And so I just have let this do what it does. We've been putting water on it. A couple of wildflowers grew again. Got to keep that there. Want to leave that there for the beautiful butterflies and the bees that are doing their job. Over here, look at this though. I will say, look at this. There is some silver linings here and there in the garden. She's happy, and that's wonderful. So there's a little bright light right there, which is nice. Over here, you'll see that this is a bed that's gone a little bit crazy, and I do see a cucumber, which is always good to see. But here's the problem. Super disappointed because I usually plant about 12 to 20 cucumber plants, and those two, as I just showed you, are doing awful, just awful. And these guys aren't doing much better. And because I've got so many birds that live here, I've got all of these wild tomatoes. I didn't plant these tomatoes. And I've got these guys, this specific variety, growing in the front yard, the backyard, around the pool, everywhere. But there she is. There's one little cucumber. So I am going to keep this bed intact because we can still pick these cherry tomatoes and eat them in the salads, and we can hopefully get a couple of cucumbers. You know, last year they were just full. Cucumbers were everywhere. And this year it's just slim pickings. It's just too hot. Too hot. Over here we just pulled out all the chard that was here. The deer ate it down to nothing. I had harvested the beets, again leaving some of these flowers for a little while longer because they're helpful to the birds and they're helpful to the bees and definitely the butterflies too. So we're going to let this one stay a little bit. This is a disaster as well. This whole bed got completely overtaken by cuckoo melon. Now I don't plant cuckoo melon, and you're getting ready to see something real funny with the cuckoo melon. I'm going to show you what the cuckoo melon has done. We had for 2 years a little tiny cuckoo melon that would show up over there around that fence behind the pool. And I'm going to show you, it's like kudzu. That stuff, it made it through the freeze. It just did what it wanted to do. But the eggplant bed, well, as you can see, we finally freed it this morning. Sergio came out here. This was all covered. It looked like one of those tarps that you stick on beds when you're trying to keep it from getting messed up with the freeze. And so we've got all of that off of it now. It looks like there's still some viable. Well, there's one of those striped beetles, so we're going to have to spray this thing up with some neem. That's the other thing, completely overtaken by bugs, beetles, animals. You know, the heat brings a lot of critters because they're looking for food too. So we'll see if we can salvage this, but this is all eggplant, and hopefully I can get a couple of good eggplants out of here within the next couple of weeks. I'm going to recompost it, throw some nutrients back down on it, keep it watered in, see if we can get this brought back to life. This was all kale, and it had all kinds of really cool Chinese greens. We harvested all that we could, and now this is the new bed. It's prepped and ready to go as well. This whole area here was all covered in wildflowers. Beautiful. And then they all died and got crunchy. So we pulled everything out that we could, cut everything back, put mulch in, and I'm going to reseed that in the next week or so and see if we can get some more wildflowers growing for the fall for the photos. Over here on this back side, now this is an interesting side of the garden. This side right here, I put some spearmint down because the ants got on this bed and got into me, and I had ants everywhere up my back and in my hands and all my legs, and I was just covered in ant bites, and I swore, oh my God, I'm never doing this without some serious protection. As you can see today, I'm wearing my boots. Normally I'm out here in flip-flops, but my husband and my son have said, do not do flip-flops in the garden anymore, Mama, because that's how you get your ant bites. So anyway, this whole bed has been taken over by salvia. It was peppers. You can see a pepper plant here. We're going to try to put some nutrients down. We're going to see if we can get it. There's one that's fallen off the vine there. But I'm going to cut all this salvia down to the bottom, down to the ground, and mulch it in. See if we can get some peppers to still grow. Back there you've got all that zinnias and cosmos and all those flowers that I planted. They're doing great. They're happy. Here's the asparagus, which is absolutely doing fantastic. Beautiful. If you guys know anything about asparagus, you'll know that once you get started with it, the beds take a couple of years to get started, and then once they're started, you can start harvesting them. And so I have cut this thing back. I usually let it just get like this all crazy and turn to seed, and then once it's really kind of a little bit more drier on the seeds, these are still a little bit wiggly, then I'll go in and cut it right down to the ground and put compost on top of it and just keep it watered a little bit. And then next year I'm really excited about this one. This one's not a disaster. This one's actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now here you go. Check it out. This is the Cuckoo Melon, or I should say the kudzu of the Sweet Life garden. And there she is. There's one right here. They look like watermelons, and they're cucumbers. And I cut one of these open the other day and tried to eat it straight off the vine, and that's a no-go, guys. It's too bitter to do that. So what I'm thinking about doing is making a relish with some fresh basil and tomatoes, and then canning up some sweet and sour, or what we call bread and butter pickles. Maybe even do some in dill. See if I can get these guys to turn into something tasty, because gosh knows I've got tons of it, as you can see. Look at this next bed. Not planted, it just happened. I came home literally, like I said, Mom and Dad came home from North Carolina, and the garden had it's a mind of its own. It just turned into something completely different from what it was that I had left it as. There's what's left of the chard. We're going to rip it out, start over. The deer love chard. I mean, they love it. They loved it over there, and then they didn't figure out it was over here, and then they figured out it was over here, and now there's no chard at all. So, starting over. This is an experiment. This is more that, well, there's another bug. You see this? They take over. There's one of those mama aphids, and they're flying all over the place. But these guys, now that they're yellow, we'll see. I may try to make some relish with the yellow and make some relish with this one, so that you and I can try it out and see what it's going to be like. I've never done it before, but gosh knows there's tons of it. So we got to figure out what to do with it, because it just grew here. The question is going to be, what am I going to do about keeping it from growing next year? Because I don't want it in the garden. I don't want it here. Over here in this bed, this is the biggest disaster. You see this whole wall covered in more of that cuckoo melon, but then look at these tomatoes. I have got some that are good, as you can see above, green, happy. Some that are just on the vine, squished up and disgusting, like sun-dried but not sun-dried. And so I'm trying to figure out what to do here. I've got some that I want to keep, like these guys are so pretty. So I don't want to get rid of those, and they're good and they taste good. And then I've got others that are just not done well at all. And then some like those guys that I just pulled right here, these little ones, I didn't plant. And then I've got over here a whole bunch of beautiful pears that I grew last year, and they were so prolific last year. They were so delicious. And this year, they're just yucky. They're really, really yucky. There's a good one there. But because of this, well, it's not really that good. Really not that good, guys. So I may just pull all that out and start from scratch. There's a whole bunch of different tomatoes that I want to try, and if it's going to be this hot in July, it'll be hot enough to grow tomatoes probably in October in Texas. So I'm not really worried about the tomato situation in terms of getting them grown. Like I said, they're in the front yard, the backyard, behind the pool. They're everywhere. The birds love it, and they've been redistributing all the seeds all over the place for quite some time. But I think that bed's going to come out, and that bed right there is going to come out. Over here, same thing. You know, didn't plant this bed. This stuff, this specific variety that has all the little itty bitties on it that grow on a little clump like this are really tasty for your salads, but they're not really good for me to make anything much else with. So I hate to throw away the food, and I like to leave stuff for the birds, so I'm going to leave a couple of these intact. But pan through there and show them that is just, it's so awful looking to me. I want the garden to be just beautiful. And back in here, you'll see I had planted in the spring carrots underneath the tomatoes. And I went to harvest some carrots the other day. And that's not a bad harvest of carrots. It's really not, but they're not that big. So we're going to pull those up and see what we can come up with for that as well. So not too bad, but not too great either. Again, showing you what's going on in the garden right now, mid-July, and obviously with a lot of things going on that were out of my control. This particular tomato bed right here, up in there you can see beautiful tomatoes, bigger. But these little guys, this whole entire little situation here is more of the same of this stuff that, you know, is just growing wild. So I'm hoping I can figure out, maybe I can do a tabbouleh or something with that. I don't know. But and then some of this stuff, you know, I'll get it and it'll be okay, and then I'll get some and then they'll have the bottom blossom rot on them, and so it's just hit and miss. And it's also a disaster when it comes to trying to keep it watered. Obviously we've talked about that, but this bed we did pull completely out and got it prepped and ready to go. It looks like that rue has seen better days. I don't know. It's got seeds on it though, so I'm going to leave it there and let it go to seed. Rue, guys, if you don't know it, if you'll rub rue on your body, the mosquitoes won't bite you. And if you plant rue with your brasilicas, your broccoli, your cabbages, your kales, your collards, that keeps the cabbage moth off of them. So you're going to be a lot more protected just naturally if you use rue in your garden. So I've got rue sort of sprinkled here and there, but that particular one got kind of crunchy. And speaking of crunchy, look at this. This is my wonderful and yet so devastating. And so as you can see, this is the big one, and I had them go ahead, I went ahead and let them go all the way through its life cycle. So I'm going to take these heads and I'm going to tear them up and stick them in here and incorporate them into this sandy soil, and then add in some microlife and some compost, you know, and pray. You know, eat, pray, love. Plant and pray and water is what we're doing over here in the Sweet Life Garden. Anyway, I've got one more thing I want to show you, so I'll catch you over there in the Dahlia Garden in just a second. So now I'm in the Dahlia Garden, and it's got the one little patch of shade that we've got in the Sweet Life Garden, kind of adjacent to the pool. And I want to remind you, if you're growing dahlias, don't forget to pinch off your heads, because if you do pinch off your heads whenever they're done blooming, you'll get more blooms. And look at this beauty right here. Isn't she pretty? This one's just about had its life cycle. I'm going to wait another couple of days because I just love the way that that looks. It's really, really pretty. These guys I put in with bulbs in the spring with Sergio, and they've turned out really great. And a couple of these wonderful zinnias have actually popped up as well. The lily back there. But this is a really special situation. I went online and I actually filled out the forums and let everybody know there what we had growing in the garden, flowers and all the different things for the butterflies and all the different stuff that we've got for the squirrels and different animals. And we were able to get the designation to be certified as a wildlife habitat. So here's the silver lining in all of this for July, is that this ain't eating, folks. This is not enough to make it worth your while to be out in the garden in 110 degrees. But if you pan over through there, you'll see behind all the chaos of those garden beds and behind all the chaos of that kudzu, aka cuckoo melons, there's a sea of beautiful flowers. And in that sea of beautiful flowers are tons and tons of butterflies. In fact, there's one right there. She just flew away. But all day long, great big, beautiful butterflies. There she is right there. You can see her. Hi guys, so we're out here in the Sweet Life Garden, and this is our update. I'm combining actually, you're getting ready to see that, a little bit of the footage that I did back whenever I got back from North Carolina. And July, the garden was at its absolute hottest it's been since 1913. And I was joking to you guys about we were living 30 degrees from the sun because it's been a hot summer this year, and it's been absolutely impossible to keep things alive without being out here every day. And I can't be out here every single day. I've got a lot of other stuff going on. I got to shoot babies. I got to write columns. I got other stuff going on. I'm mentoring a bunch of kiddos with entrepreneurship. I just got a lot of stuff going on. So the garden is important, but the garden was not like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind over it. So here's what I've done. I went in and I gutted everything out that was just dead and dying, things that were just absolutely past beyond fixing and recognition. And then what I did is I went back in and planted. And last weekend I was out here working in it, and we got everything refurbished. We put new mulch in. We put new microlife fertilizer in. We got all the beds prepped and ready to roll for the seeds. And I directly sowed some stuff in. And there's not a lot of stuff you can actually see from the seeds because they were just been put in last weekend. But I'm going to share with you what I've got and where it is so we can watch it along the way. Because as you know, I'm doing this video like once a month for you guys to see the progression in the garden. So this is kind of a combined showing you what I've done and where it was and where it is now. And then we'll go further as we go into September. But anyway, over here in this bed, this is where we had those gorgeous roses that I call roses, those big cabbage heads. This bed got gutted, and we have two very large, beautiful purple eggplant, the big ones. I've got some smaller ones over there, but these are the two big ones over here. And then in this bed, we've got some fantastic peppers, and I did leave a few of the zinnias that have continuously reseeded. Over here, I want to show you this cute little mushroom patch I've got. Feels like we've got some little fairies living out here in the Sweet Life Garden. Cute little mushrooms. And when you get that kind of thing happening in your garden, it just is no big deal. Don't freak out about it. I mean, obviously, if you've got children, make sure you caution them that they're not to eat that because they're very poisonous. But the thing about these mushrooms is that it just shows you've got a really good biozone going on, microbiome going on in the soil. You can actually chop them up and stick them into the dirt again in your beds, and it will be no big deal whatsoever. So there's a little tip for you if you accidentally wake up one morning and find a whole bunch of cool mushrooms growing in your garden. Don't freak out. Over here we've got a full bed of beets. As you guys know, Uncle Brian loves those beets. So these are a full bed. These are golden beets in this bed. I've got another bed that I completely sowed that is fully filled with ruby reds. So I've got one full golden, one full ruby. And as you guys know, what I always tell you to do is please think about what you're going to eat and plant what you're going to eat. I love having a garden full of everything, but if I don't eat everything and the family doesn't eat everything, you're just growing stuff to grow it. And it's a lot of work, as you always know, with all the sun and the heat and the fertilizers and all the time that you have to spend on it. So grow what you know you're going to eat, and we eat a lot of beets around here. So this is the first beet bed for the fall. I've also got some beets sown in here as well. These are the ruby red ones. What's left of the chives, I've let go ahead and go to seed. I let them go ahead and flower. They just make more. This is great for cooking. This is great to come out here and take your scissors and chop it up and put this on a baked potato. Nothing better than a fresh chive from your garden. This bed was a bed that had celery in it, and it had a lot of other things. It had cabbages, and it had, well, mainly celery and cabbages, actually. And the deer ate the celery down to the ground, and the cabbages we harvested. And what was sprinkled in the middle of all that were some more of those zinnias that seeded themselves, and that just helps the butterflies. And as you guys know, we're certified for a wildlife here, so all the beds that I can have sprinkled here and there with a little bit of wildflowers is all for the best. So over here is the pepper bed. We've got yellow peppers, green peppers, bell peppers, all kinds of peppers. Over here in the back, I've got chard seeded. I'll have to cage it because the deer love to eat it. And then this is some bee balm and just some flowers that's left over. I'll probably pull some of this stuff out and kind of add a little bit more mulch in here and tuck in some parsley or maybe some spearmint right here in the front. This bed is cucumbers. I actually seeded these in pods, trays that were out in the potting shed that I've got, a little potting garden area. You guys saw the snake got in there last week on Instagram and let them grow up. And now I've got a full bed here of cucumber, and then I've got a half bed here. And the reason for the half bed is because I have to have these arches to grow them up onto. So only 3 here in a row so they can utilize this arch here for support. Here's our little tiny and doing quite well eggplants. There you go. You can see those. Some blooms, doing very well. Very, very, very well. See those little guys? This bed, when I got back from North Carolina, many guys know that Mom passed away in the end of May. And while we were gone, the bed here, there, and yonder went crazy. There's tomatoes everywhere, things I didn't plant. It was just a mess. It contributed to me having to gut the garden in July. But this whole bed of eggplants was covered in cuckoo melon that I did not plant. And it built an archway over it and suffocated it almost. And so we got all that out of there, and I've been getting them back to health. There's still a few that have some leaves that are not doing well. I've got a little bug issue happening here. This particular plant, as you can see, is not doing well. I'll spray a little neem on that later on, but you can see those purple buds are there. And we do have a lot of beautiful, fresh coming in that look pretty good. So we'll be doing some recipes in the cooking part of the channel. Which, by the way, Carl's coming back. Carl's been working on that food truck, and he's able to come back at the end of August, and we'll be doing the 2 chef show soon, too. This bed here has 2 spots of rue in it, and they are prepped out and waiting for the cabbages and the collards, which is a cool weather crop. And as you guys know, in Texas, we ain't got much cool weather happening, so they're sitting there waiting to go. They take away the little moth that likes to get in there and mess up those cabbages and kales. So that's why I went ahead, when I saw them at the store, I went ahead and bought them and put them in there. Over here, I've got a beautiful bed of radishes. Full bed of radishes. And as you can see, just in a week's time, check that out. Little itty bitty baby radishes have already started to sprout up. Those little seeds are a fast crop. And it's a good crop to put in if you like radishes, if you like to pickle them, if you like to have them in your salads. It's an easy crop for children too. I mean, you can literally just stick your finger in the dirt, sprinkle some seeds in, boom. Very, very quickly you can get some radishes for some salads. We cut back the asparagus, as you can see. We've got some sprouting some more. This is one of those things that I have to keep letting it just do its thing. Hopefully next year we'll be able to get some really good asparagus for actually eating. But you can see what happens is right here's one. One will pop up right here, and then it comes up and spreads out and then makes some more seeds and then dumps seeds. So this is what you need to do with your asparagus bed, is keep letting them seed themselves. This is tripled, if not quadrupled, in size since I actually planted it back in 2020. This little bed right here has 4 tomatoes in it. 4. Not 4,000, which is what my usual is. So I've got 4 tomatoes here, here, and here. I did put an egg in the hole, and I put a cage on the top to keep the snakes and keep the raccoons away from it. This is another bed that has some sprinkling of some seeded by itself zinnias. I'm leaving it here. You can see back here in this back part of the garden, all this was filled with zinnias. There's some cuckoo melon there growing that, again, I did not plant. Getting ready this weekend to put mulch in, and I've got 3,000 seeds to put in, hummingbird mix and wildflowers for the butterflies and all the other wildlife that likes to be here to help pollinate the garden. Here is the lavender bed that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to come in here and harvest these buds. I wrote about that in one of my columns. You can look at that on Alisa Murray's LivingTheSweetLife.com blog. And I'll be making some homemade bath salts and milk baths to give to my friends for the holidays. So that's why this is here. Here I've got a little bit of okra. I've got it caged, and I know you're thinking to yourself, okra's a tall plant. Why has she got it caged? Because it's going to get eaten straight to the ground with the Bambis. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do with those kiddos, because they've been trampling through the garden all summer long. I've been letting them eat, but I put my foot down. I love okra. It's good for people who have diabetes. It's really just a good vegetable to have, and so I wanted to grow a little bit, so I'm going to put it here, and maybe I'll just have to figure out a way to lift the cage and pick it and let it just grow weird. Hopefully it'll do it. I don't know. It's an experiment. We'll see how it goes. All the other beds that you see are resting beds. I'll worry about that later on in the fall. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do green beans or black-eyed peas, or I know I'm doing collards. I know I'm doing kale. I got the rue I showed you earlier. But that's it, guys. That's what I've done. That's where it's at right now with the garden. And so I'll keep you posted as we get more along in the season. And I'm watering out here every day now because it's turned into between 110 degrees a day. It's dropped to early 90s. Still hot, but doable. So anyway, we'll see you soon on the channel. Take care.